Hello, thank you for listening to A Glimpse of the Kingdom. I am David Pendergrass. In this healthy marriage series, we're on healthy habit number 2, and this is one of the most important ones of all of them. It's going to be a little bit longer because of the topic, and I think I'm going to keep this in one podcast so that if it's longer for you, you need to take a break, and I understand. I think people more likely to listen to if it's in one podcast versus part 1, part 2, 3, blah, blah, blah. So let's get going. Healthy habit number 2. Healthy marriages involve both spouses practicing the habits of healthy communication. I have found this to be the case that in many marriages, I think, well, why'd you get divorced? Well, because of money. Now, money doesn't cause divorce. Money can't cause anything. Money is either coinage or fabric or paper, or it's currency. It doesn't cause anything. How you relate to money might cause it, or whatever the case might be. But what usually the case is communication. They didn't talk about money well. They didn't talk about the death of a child well. They didn't process it well. They didn't interpret the events well. Well, meaning process it as much as thoroughly together as they could. So it's communication. And as many things we're covering this 5 beliefs and 5 habits, communication ties into all of them to some degree, and that's true. But I wanted to have its own deal so we can focus on some key aspects of communication. Now, there are several aspects of healthy communication that we need to cover. For example, these are some common ways that couples screw up. These are common ways that guarantee you won't have healthy communication. And these are common ones that I have found in my counseling experience with people. These are very common ways. Now, later on in this podcast, I'm going to tell you the top 2 or 3 ways people mess up. But here's some common ways people mess it up. Most couples don't spend, number 1, the necessary time that is required to foster healthy communication. They don't do eye-to-eye, body-to-body focus with intent listening. Most couples who have bad communication just do not spend the necessary time required to foster it. They just don't. They're not able to pause long enough to give one other person unadulterated attention. They've got the TV on, the radio on, the phone on, they're doing a task. They're just not good at it. It's true, and that's just a very common problem. Another very common problem, most couples have at least one person who thinks the other spouse can and should be able to read my mind. To read my mind. This is nonsense. Don't expect it. Don't attempt to communicate that way. Well, you should have known. If you ever say you should have known, you are mistaken. You're wrong. David, whatever. We've been married for long enough. He should just know. Well, okay, I disagree with you completely. Even if he might know what you were thinking, that's not healthy communication. It's not healthy communication. So that's a very common problem that couples have. There's at least one person, sometimes both spouses are this way. They should have picked up on the other thing is read my mind. Another very common one is they can, and the other spouse can and should be able to pick up on my body signals. That's also nonsense. Don't expect it. Don't attempt to communicate that way. Ever. Reading your mind and picking up on body signals is not healthy communication. Ever. It's never good. It's never a good idea. So I would never do that. Many new couples especially don't bond completely because one spouse still communicates more with her, his parents, or siblings, or old friends, or than her or his spouse. That's a very common problem, is that, particularly, not always, but particularly amongst the wife who still, her mom's her best friend or whomever, whatever, or sibling or cousin, or maybe it's just a best girlfriend, and they're used to calling on the way home from work and debriefing for 30 minutes on the way home, and then the husband gets on, how's your day? Fine. And they don't know what's going on in your world, because you don't talk to them. And so that's another common problem, is that communication is limited because you end up you're still talking to people from your former life before marriage, before marriage, you're still talking to them more than you are your spouse. And that's not healthy. And another common problem makes it really hard for healthy communication is most couples only talk or chiefly talk about usually one of three things. One, they talk about superficial things like the weather and movies. And of course, superficial just means surface level. Things that don't involve much feeling or thought or significance, just superficial things. Things you would talk to a stranger about. So a lot of people talk in their own marriage, they end up talking about superficial things. 2, or they talk about tasks like getting the oil change, picking up the kids from practice, school, what needs to be done tomorrow, what bills need to be paid, tasks. And these are things you talk about with a colleague or a coworker. And then thirdly, the kind of things most people talk about, couples, they talk about problems, things that must be fixed. Would you talk about so-and-so? When you discuss this, what's going on about this? And so, of course, problems, you could talk about colleagues and coworkers and so forth. But that's not what married people want to talk about all the time. That's not what they need to talk about all the time, and not in healthy communication. So here's a little test, just a quick little test. See if you can do this sometime. I bet you won't, but here's a good test. Think very briefly on these common ways couples mess up healthy communication, and you're going to own it. But before you do that, I want you to think about these things. Before you do that, here's a little test. If you grab your spouse, grab them by the hand. No, if you talk to your spouse, say, I'm going to practice this crazy wacko podcast I listened to recommended it, and we'll see what happens. I want you to get knee to knee. So, you get close to the person, get 2 chairs. If you can on the floor, it doesn't matter. Try to get real close to them, knee to knee. And you don't talk at all. And you can hold their hands or not hold their hands, up to you. But you don't do anything else except look in their eyes. Look in their eyes for 4 minutes. That's it. No music. Tell the kids, no, you're quiet, whatever. And look 4 minutes. And you can time yourself. Put a timer on, whatever. And see what happens. Look, don't break stare. Don't look away. Don't look up and down. Look right in the eyeballs. Now, when the time's up, tell your spouse what you're thinking. What were you thinking? How did you feel at the beginning? How did you feel at the end? I bet it's because I've seen this many times. Some people, you might use comedy to address your anxiety. You start making a silly face. You might start laughing. Some people start crying. Strong emotions come out. Did you allow yourself to focus mentally on your spouse, not sports or lunch or whatever? And do you think you could tell what your spouse was thinking just by looking at him or her? Could you say, I know he was thinking about this? That's always a good test, and they're always wrong. Because you can't tell. But anyway, that's a good practice. The exercise can tell you a lot about you and your relationship with your spouse. It also tells a lot about how much you don't do that. How much we don't as spouses look at our spouse in silence and listen. And you said, well, David, they weren't talking. It doesn't matter. The point is you were listening. You looked them in the eyeballs and you paused. You didn't have to be talking. You didn't have to be silly. You look at your spouse. And so many times I've seen and heard to be the case where when I ask people several questions in a counseling session, it's amazing. Sometimes the breakthroughs they'll have. They'll say, it just hit me all over again how much I love her. And how much he sacrifices for the family, and they'll start crying. Say, it just really hit me. I haven't thought about it in a long time, or whatever it might be. So, okay. Well, those are some common ways people mess it up. I'll come back to that in a second, but I'm trying to get your attention at first on, you might find yourself in anything I just said. If so, own that. Own it and say, you know what, I blame him or her. They should have read my mind or picked my body signals, or I don't talk much at all, and I don't listen much at all to the person. That's true. Or if I do talk, it's about superficial things or tasks or problems. So you start owning those things. You start going, that's my problem, and I've got to do better. So okay, David, great. So what's healthy communication? Healthy communication, and I'm talking about more in the abstract sense, okay? And bear with me here. Healthy communication occurs when your spouse fully understands and validates how you feel about events in your life, and when you fully understand and validate how your spouse feels about events. So I'll say it one more time. Healthy communication occurs when your spouse fully understands and validates how you feel about events in your life, and when you fully understand and validate how your spouse feels about events. So there are 3 key components in that definition. Sharing feelings about events. 2, feeling understood. She gets it. Or he's with me. Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. And 3rd, you feel validated or affirmed. Like hearing things like, your feelings matter to me, or I'm sorry, or I'm proud of you, whatever. So you share your feelings about events, you're feeling understood, and you feel validated and affirmed. Now, that's healthy communication. That's very healthy communication. I'm not suggesting that every time you ever speak, these things must occur, or it's wildly unhealthy and toxic. No. It's not that. What would you like for dinner? I'd like pizza. What kind of pizza would you like? Papa John's, the other person says Little Caesars, and you go, we need to negotiate this. We'll talk about it. But, okay, after our negotiation, how did you feel about that event, getting the pizza? I felt listened to and heard and full now because I had that delicious pizza. I'm glad you felt full and you feel full and heard after that delicious pizza. And then you talk about how no, I mean, you can do that. You can. But in general, when people come to me and their spousal breakdown and they're not doing well, I guarantee you at some level, there is a pattern of unhealthy communication. And the pattern is it always goes back to what I said in these three aspects. At some level, if there's a big breakdown in communication in a marriage relationship, it's because someone's not sharing feelings about events, someone doesn't feel understood, and they don't feel validated or affirmed. Period. I mean, I could take you to the bank over and over and over again at some level. And I'll talk about this more later as well. When you talk about feelings, that's one of the ways you know you're talking to a person you want to be bonded with. You're talking to someone you love in a marriage relationship. I can talk about events to strangers. I don't share my feelings about events that much at all. I save that because that's in my inner world. I save that for my spouse or people I really love, or maybe my best guy friend, things like that. That's healthy communication. Okay. Now this last thing. So when you share feelings about events, you feel understood and you feel validated and affirmed. That's when healthy communication is occurring. Now, this last one, feeling validated, this is where love languages can be so important. Though it's not necessary every single time to be validated. It's not necessary, but it's common. Now, a love language is an expression, adjective, the title. It became a title of a book, Love Languages, by Dr. Gary Chapman, who's a Christian counselor, and it became, the book is gigantic popular. I mean, there's no telling millions of copies or something it sold. It started out real small and got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And Gary Chapman, he says there are 5 ways to express and experience love. And basically it's like this. It's like saying, how do you know if someone really loves you? If I said, does your spouse love you? And you said, yes, she sure does. And I'll say, how do you know that? You say, I just do. No, think about it for a second. What does your spouse do or say that lets you know you're loved? And it's true, though, in general, if you ask someone that question, usually their responses will come and it'll be one of these 5 different areas. These are love languages. These are ways that someone expresses and experiences love. And these aren't in order of anything. They're just the way. I'm just reading them out this way. So here, a love language is words of affirmation. These are very specific times where a person feels encouraged and praised. But again, it's very specific. It's very deliberate. It's not, you did well today. It's, you did very well in your presentation. It seemed very thoughtful and you were very articulate and you could tell you had studied the material. Words of affirmation are very specific. Quality time. This is where you have unadulterated, good time with a person. People who like quality time like staring you in the eyeballs. They want everything turned off. They're going to stare at you in the face almost the whole time if they can help it. They don't want to have heart-to-heart conversations when they're driving a car or something because they want to be able to look at the person. They really, that's quality time. I go on for a long time about that. Giving gifts. So gifts is a third category, and that's the people who like gifts. Again, very particular gifts, not just a gift you go buy and just simply maybe a gift card, but it's a gift card to a place they knew you loved. And as a card, it's a gift, it's an object that they remembered you like that. So it's not just some, out of a dollar bin. They want something very specific. Acts of service, that just means what it is, to be served just about in any way possible. They receive as love. And the 5th one is physical touch. And physical touch, it can involve sexual touch, but that's not really the point of physical touch. It's much more about any kind of touch that's safe and validating and encouraging. So it can be high fives, it can be pats on the arm, shoulder, it can be pats on top of the head if they're little kids. They can be pat on the back of the shoulder. Again, shaking hands. These are physical touch things. Giving hugs, but it does not imply sex, because people can love sex and say physical touch is not the chief love language. And that's it. So those are the 5 love languages, and that validation matters a lot. But you don't have to use this every time someone feels validated, but you'll know if a person feels validated when they're communicating, because at some level These are in the background. So, for example, and Chapman, that's one thing. Gary Chapman argues that everyone has these love languages, and basically everyone has a top 1 or 2, and the other 3, 4, 5, if you were to triage them in order, the numbers 3, 4, 5 just don't matter that much at all to you, especially if it's number 5. So, for example, my top love languages, mine are probably tied, but they're close to it. Probably acts of service is number 1, and number 2 is quality time. And then probably affirmation, then gifts and physical touch, I guess, which means maybe affirmation at the bottom. I don't know, it depends. It just, anyway, which means by default, when someone serves me or spends quality time with me, I feel very validated and heard and loved. And by default, it means I try to express love that way. I want people to know I love them by serving them. I just do it by default. Whatever your love languages are, that's what's going to be for you. You will by default give the way you like to receive it. Well, that's wonderful if you're married to someone who has a top love languages like you do. I am not married to a person whose top love languages are mine. Her top 2 are different. Hers are words of affirmation and physical touch. So those are not on my radar. They're just not on my radar at all because I don't care much about those things. I don't care that much about them. And what that means is we've had many conversations about this. And so that I want her to share her feelings about that. I want to make sure she feels understood. I want to make sure she feels validated and affirmed. And so one of the things I have to do is I have to be conscious of it. So what I do is, and I've told my wife before, and she did it just the other day, in fact, but I've told her years ago, you have full permission to tell me that I've not been doing a good job lately, or you just need more of something. For example, I'm usually, because I'm a thinker type in Myers-Briggs, I'm usually walking around with some kind of problem to solve in my mind or some whatever it might be. It doesn't matter really what it is. I just like thinking of things and learning all the time. So, which means I'm usually quite cerebral. I'm usually in my adult ego state, except when I'm trying to be sillier and be my child state, which I try my best to do. And which means, though, I'm not thinking, I need to go hug Elaine. I need to hold her hand. That's physical touch. Or I need to praise her again. I don't think that. And so there are times, it might be a few days, you'll go, you haven't been hugging me much lately, or I need some more hugs or something. Well, I don't get all mad. Who are you? What do you think? I love my wife, and I want her to feel validated and loved. And that's her love language, and she can't control that. No, then I can control mine. And so I go, I'm sorry. And so I'll go give her hugs. Now, I might do better for a season, then I go back the way it used to be. And then it's kind of seasonal that way. But that's because it's not natural to me. It's not on my default switch. And that's all. So it doesn't mean, and she knows that, which means she doesn't get her feelings are hurt if I haven't hugged her lately. She might feel a little sad, but she's not mad about it. She's not resenting me. She's not, you just don't want to hug me ever because you don't. No. She understands it's not on my top list. So that's the way that is. Whatever. Do you fully understand what your spouse needs for you to do so that he or she feels loved by you? I mean, do you fully understand what your spouse needs for you, what you to do? For example, do you know what your spouse's love languages are? Do you know exactly what they are and how to give them? And do you know what yours are? Maybe you don't know what love language. You just say this way. Tell your spouse the ways that you feel loved. I like it when you. I know you care about me when you ... I know you care about me when you. I like it when you. And some people say, take out the trash. Ha 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 ha. Well, it's not really funny, actually. That's an act of service. It means it might be service is your chief love language. So taking out the trash really does help a person feel loved. In other words, it's not just for funny. Something that is. That's great. When my wife makes me food, she makes me breakfast or makes me a protein shake or whatever, I feel very loved. And she knows that. And I tell her, I'm very thankful. I thank her every single time. It's a phenomenal treat. I can make my own daggum food. I'm responsible for my own food. But when she does it, it's a treat. And on top of that, I feel loved. It's a win-win. It's like a double whammy of awesomeness. And I'm serious. I just love it. And so you need to find a spouse like that. Oh, if you can. Anyway, so talk about those things with your spouse. Talk about it. What are several specific things I can do that would communicate that I love you? You're waiting for real. You wait for real concrete specifics. So when someone says they just don't love me, and the spouse looks at me crazy in a counseling session, they go, "Of course I do. Yes, I do." And I go, "Well, they need to do a better job." And I go, "What does that look like?" They know Well, no, they don't know, or he wouldn't be confused right now, or she wouldn't be confused. So what do they need to do? Well, just be better at it. No, that's not good enough, but that's not fair. So when you say just get better at it, better at what? Better at showing they love me. Okay, what's some examples? Well, they just need to do better. No, you need real concrete examples. For example, what? Take the trash out? If you need more praise, like what specifically is it? You need to get real concrete examples. And then when you do, listen, spouse, this is gold on a platter. If a spouse tells you precisely what it is that their love language is, you know exactly now what to do. It's brilliant. It's easy. It's simple. Now you know. If my wife says this is real. So my chief love languages for her, she would say, is quality words of affirmation and physical touch. Now I know exactly what to do to communicate that. It means I don't have to buy her $500 purses every 2 weeks. She's going to appreciate that. She'll be very thankful, but it's not her chief love language. It's just not. It's not what she really wants. And I don't have to waste all my money. Moreover, I don't want another man speaking her love language. I know what it is, and I will communicate that love language to her. I'll be on top of that as best I can. And like I said, sometimes not. She'll have to remind me. But in general, I know what it is. Praise Jesus, I know what it is, and I can do it. That's easy. It's easy peasy. So take all the mystery out. No, David's no longer romantic. That's nonsense. I think it's nonsense. It's very romantic. They will appreciate it. Speak in your spouse's love language. Well, that's just silly. They shouldn't want all those gifts. They're greedy. No, it's not about being greedy. Gift giving is not about being expensive gifts. It's not like that. Ask your spouse if all they want is expensive things all the time. Well, you might then they say yes, and you married a greedy person. But in general, gift giving is not about being greedy or materialistic. No more than words of affirmation is about a person who has a very, very, very low self-esteem or they're a narcissist. No, it doesn't mean those bad things. It doesn't mean you're a sinner. There's just ways you express love and you receive it. So, get good at it if I were you. That helps everything in validation. And you'll feel validated, you'll feel affirmed, and that's one of those key aspects of communication. I'm going to pause right there. If you don't mind, please listen carefully to these quick announcements.
Ever wonder what God wants you to do with your money? Should I give it all away or save? What did the early church do with their money? In Dr. Pendergrass's book, Give It Away, Reflections on How Christians Use Money, you'll get 4 short, powerful lessons on what to do with money based on some key texts from the New Testament. This is a wonderful guide for study and reflection. It even comes with reflection questions that are perfect for small group discussions. Give It Away, Reflections on How Christians Use Money. Buy your copies today on Amazon.com. Do you know of any skeptics in your family, at work, or among your friends? Do you struggle with questions concerning the existence of God or the truth claims of Christianity? Has a skeptic ever challenged you with a difficult question concerning your faith? Then you need to buy Dr. Pendergrass's book, A Skeptic Challenges a Christian, on Amazon.com. You can get it in paperback or on Kindle or in audiobook form to listen to. A Skeptic Challenges a Christian is written unlike any other book. It's not boring and full of technical jargon. It reads like you're sitting down having a conversation. As one reviewer said, "As a college student, I absolutely love this book. Dr. Pendergrass knows how to effectively answer a lot of the questions that my friends at school ask about my faith. This book is a great resource for theological debates and for my own personal growth. The arguments are clear and understandable. I would definitely recommend this book to anyone who has questions about Christianity, wants to learn how to defend their faith, or even just wants a good read. Great book." Find out why it has a perfect 5-star rating on Amazon.com. A Skeptic Challenges a Christian. Buy your copies today. Do you like receiving a glimpse of the kingdom for free? Would you like to support what God is doing through these resources? Then please consider donating to David Pendergrass Ministries, Inc. today at davidpendergrass.com. There, you can also sign up to receive Dr. Pendergrass's free blog on a wide range of theological, biblical, and relationship issues. That's davidpendergrass.com.
So to repeat real quickly before we move on, you know you have healthy communication when you're talking about not just an event, but a feeling about an event. When you feel heard and validated, and then That's it. I mean, that's it. When you talk about when someone listens to how you feel about an event, when someone understands what you said, they really repeat and understand it. And the third, you feel validated. You're going to feel loved. You're going to feel like someone's getting you. You're going to feel like someone really wants to really understand you. That's healthy communication, and that works both ways. So when you're talking to your spouse, are you listening very carefully to how they feel about something? Are you repeating back to them and they understand? I understand you say X, Y, Z, and do they feel validated? And in general, in the abstract, that's healthy communication. What are some topics you should certainly communicate about? Well, it's like WIFU, right? What's in it for us? Anything that affects the couple. You should certainly communicate about anything that affects the couple. Here's some examples of things you should be discussing in your marriage. One more time, these are things you should be. Healthy marriages are what both spouses are talking about these things, not just once in a while. These are the issues that would be normal talking points in marriages. Maybe not at every dinner table, but this is normal and healthy communication. Here, I'm going to list a bunch of them. 1, any pattern whatsoever that your spouse is doing that damages the relationship. Any pattern whatsoever that your spouse is doing that damages the relationship. You should be talking about that. It's time to stop avoiding it. It's time to stop denying it. It's time to stop beating around the bush. You should be talking about anything at all your spouse is doing that damages the relationship. There are really good books on how to have difficult conversations. There's a book by Cloud or Townsend called How to Have That Conversation You've Been Avoiding. There's all kinds of really good books out there that you can read about that, but you need to be discussing that issue. Another thing you should be talking about is any issue or event in your past that affects your present. In your relationship, you should, any and all issues or events in your past that affect your present. Why? Well, like I talked about earlier in a belief, because healthy couples always want to interpret or process those past events well. So all issues or events in your past that affect your present, that should be conversation in your marriage right now. All of them. If it affects your present at all, you should be talking about them. You should talk about all financial decisions, like where your money is, how much there is, all the bank accounts. Remember, money doesn't cause divorce. The improper communication and resultant stress money can bring causes divorce. But financial decisions should be discussed all the time. There shouldn't be one person who's always in the dark. He does all the money. She does all the money. That's not healthy. It's just not healthy. Your spouse needs to know how much money you have, where it is, how the money is handled, how you pay the bills all the time. What if your spouse dies, who handles all the money, dies tonight? What are you going to do? I mean, this is the 1920s where you don't, it's a big ado or whatever. You got to get all the paperwork and what. No, I mean, it's almost everything's electronic these days. So get your passwords, figure it out, talk about the money. Well, you don't think you trust me anymore? This isn't about trust. We're married. This is our money. And speaking of that, I do think married couples ought to have joint accounts. Unless one spouse has a problem with the spending problems, seriously, if there's a legitimate spending problem or addiction, they should have, outside of that, they should have joint accounts. That's my view. And they should talk about it. It shouldn't be a sensitive topic. It should be, here's the money. In my own marriage, I handle I do. I guess I do all the money. Well, she pays some bills sometimes, but in general, I do 95% of the stuff. But what I do is, of course, my wife knows how to do the bill. She's competent and intelligent. She knows how to do it, how to log on, how to do this and that, where our bills are. And in point of emergency, she knows what to do. She knows where the accounts are. She's highly competent, but also because we run over these things. I give her updates every once in a while of how much money's in the account, how we're doing, what's going on. If it's a tough season, or I might say, honey, we can't spend much money in the next few weeks. Because you bought all those Gucci purses, and I'm just kidding. So, but I might tell her that stuff. But the point is, she goes, okay, all that stuff. It's just always communication. Another thing is all issues involving your job or career. And what I mean is big issues. You need to know what your spouse does. You need to talk about work stress, work changes. I have met so many couples who have no idea what their spouse does. I've asked women particularly, what does your husband do? He works at blah, blah. What does he do there? I'm not real sure what he does. That's bizarre to me. Your husband is at work most of his life in your marriage, and you don't know what he does. Who are his friends there? Who are the colleagues? What are his temptations? What's his struggles? What's it like there? How was work today? Fine. Really? Every day is fine? That's not healthy. It's just not healthy. Your spouse should be the person you talk to about work stress and what goes on. It doesn't mean you have to vent for 5 hours every day. It just means they should know how you're doing and what work is like and what it's like to be. They should know that. That's normal and healthy. Healthy marriages know about that. They don't know every detail about everything you do, but they should know. I mean, that's healthy. Another thing you should talk about is your particular roles in the marriage. For example, who will work and why? Who does the dishes? I mean, who does the laundry? Who does the whatever? Roles can change, so just talk about it. Just talk about the roles or tasks. If you don't like the word role, fine. Don't use the word role. Tasks. Job description. I mean, that's it. And if you don't, that's it. These are all, again, it's your responsibility to make sure you get up and go to work. It's your responsibility to make sure you're eating every day. It's your responsibility. But in a marriage relationship, ideally, you've married a person who wants to treat you and you want to treat her or him and so forth. And so you can talk about that, but you talk about it. You just talk about it. If something new comes up, you talk about it. Just discuss it. You keep thinking, what's in it for us? And so you're going to work out well. Another topic you're going to talk about is how to discipline your children. You discuss that, ideally, before you have children. And then when you have children, you keep talking about it. And if things change, you talk about that. Your children get older, you talk about that. You talk about choices involving the children, such as the food they're going to eat, candy, sleepovers, the friends, electronics, TV time, phone. You talk about all that stuff. You talk about your sex life. Yes, you actually discuss it. Rate yourself, 0 to 10. How are you? How is your partner? How's your sex life? And why? Why not? Why is it out of 10? What's going on? Talk about it. Yes, I said it. Talk about it. You talk about your marriage, how you feel about your marriage, anything to work on, your goals, etc. Talk about your marriage. Talk about your Christian life. What is God doing in your life? Your prayer life? What are your doubts, your struggles, your victories? I mean, it's astonishing to me that if you're married, if you are a Christian, you're married to a Christian, and I'll talk about this later on, my last thing in the podcast series. It's astonishing to me how much Christian spouses don't treat their Christian spouse as a sibling in Christ. Ideally, as a Christian, you're going to be a prayer warrior, an encourager, and a challenger, an accountability partner, all wrapped up in one. And so many couples don't ever talk about it ever. They just go to church. What do you think about the sermon? It was all right. It was good. How about that? It was funny. Oh, wow. Hoo, ha, ha, ha. And they go home. No. I mean, don't. What else are you going to talk about? You're going to talk about your wounds? Your wounds. Anything whatsoever that surfaces over time about which you need support and encouragement. Any wounds at all that come up, you're going to talk about them. You're going to talk about everything that you like or love or appreciate about your spouse. And I'll stop on this one here because I could keep going on for a long time. But these are common things people don't talk about. But this talking about things you love or appreciate your spouse, it's amazing how much this doesn't happen. And this, even if their chief love language is not words of encouragement, you need to do this sometimes. Psychologists, we call it doesn't, I guess, nerd talk, but there's a particular psychological system or school of thought. They call them strokes. A stroke is when we say something validating or encouraging to a person, and the person said we are stroke deficient. We're stroke deficient. And I agree. It's like being vitamin D deficient. They've done studies on many people go out through years and they don't get hugged because if they're not married, or maybe they are married, they don't get hugged much. People grow up in homes where moms and dads never said, I love you. And so they become stroke deficient. It's like they're starving for it. And the odds are your spouse is one of those persons who's stroke deficient because most people at work don't praise people. A lot of us have thankless jobs. Well, thank your spouse as often as you can. Tell them what you love or like about them. Something I started to do at my own home when the children were old enough to do it. I'm serious. As soon as they're old enough to talk, what we would do is we have a tradition now when we go out to dinner as a family or lunch, whatever it is. Now they know what to do. I'll say, okay, let's say something we love about mom, and we'll go around the table, 2, 3, 4, 5 times. And we all say, and it's just one person. We don't take turns that night as far as who gets praised. It's one person. And we always do it on birthdays and maybe anniversaries. It's always do it on birthday for sure, whoever's birthday it is. But just in general, we'll do it. Say, all right, let's say something. And yes, the kids can be silly. And sometimes we laugh a whole lot, but I always tell them that we were serious about it because I want people to know that. And I want them to hear it. I want them to hear it now as often as possible and not at a funeral. So many times in communication, we're just not talking to our spouses well. We're not praising them well enough. We're just not spending the time. Oh, I mean, they know how I feel. If that's you, you're immature. You need to grow up and realize healthy adults tell other adults how they feel about them. Even friends, tell your friends how much you feel about them. Tell them. Why wait? Why do we wait to funerals to say all those nice things about a person? It's the most bizarre, stupid, not the most, it's one of the most bizarre and stupid traditions humans have. Why wait till they're dead? It makes no sense at all. Tell people now. Call them now. Facebook them now. Text them now and say how much that you appreciate them and love them and what they've done for you. And everyone loves to be encouraged, even if that's not their chief love language. Everybody loves it. Everybody loves it. I love it. I try to give it. Anyway, there's my sermon for the day. Okay. So you talk about everything you possibly can all the time. Okay. Here are 3 of the most dysfunctional communication patterns. So, David, we do talk about some of those things, and it's still not working. Well, first off, you might not be talking about those things you think you are, but let's assume you are talking about some of those things. Let's assume you're talking about all those things. But when you do actually talk, here are 3 of the most dysfunctional patterns that I've heard in marriages. So, again, it's not just about the topics, which is good, but how you discuss them. How you discuss them matters a lot. So I could spend a long time on this. I won't, because I've done other podcasts on transactional analysis. But I'm not going to, just for time, I've got to cut a lot out. But the number one most common dysfunctional communication pattern I have found in marriages is this. When one of the spouses comes as a critical parent, and the other spouse responds to the critical parent as a rebellious child. So, and usually, not always, usually it's the woman, the spouse, the female, the wife, who talks down to the husband. But I've also heard the other way around too, so don't get caught up in who does what, because your marriage, no telling. But that's usually what happens. It's when one person says, it's my role to correct him. It's my role to make sure he's on time. It's my role to make sure he's got his clothes have got to match. I've got to make sure he does it. And the other person says, it's my role to rebel and do what I want. Now, critical parents can be explicit. What I mean is they can be outspoken, they can be loud, they can be bossy. Don't do that. Do this. You know you're a critical parent when you tell anyone anything to do. Anytime you have a verb that's in an imperatival mood. Do this, don't do that. If you're giving a commandment, you are in the critical parent ego state. So they can be explicit, outspoken, loud, or bossy. Critical parents can be implicitly a critical parent. They can be quiet, manipulative, give guilt messages, make faces, be passive-aggressive. They can be that way. Ask yourself, how often do you praise your spouse or criticize the other? If you find yourself criticizing the most, if there's a pattern, if you're just gut level honest, don't think long about it and said, in your marriage, if you're in my room and I'm on my couch and I'm counseling you as a couple and I go, who criticized the other one the most in this marriage? Go, raise your hand or point. The odds are, for a lot of people, someone's going to know exactly who it is. And if you find yourself being the person who criticizes the most or tells them what to do all the time, it means you're probably in a critical parent role. What makes that so dysfunctional is, you're not your spouse's parent. You're not your spouse's parent. God did not put you on this planet to be your spouse's parent. Think about that for a second. Please let that sink in. One of the reasons why people in marriages have a horrible sex life, and they might have sex sometimes, but it's not very good. They don't really enjoy it. It's kind of perfunctory. Is because they're in this horrible dance of dysfunction, critical parent to rebellious child. Parents don't want to have sex with their children. Parents don't want to have sex with their children. That sounds maybe gross and legit, because it is legit, because that's what it's supposed to be. That's how you feel. When you talk down to your spouse all the time because you think you're God's gift to the earth and you're God's gift to your spouse, to tell your spouse how the dishwasher should be and how they should fold their socks and who they should talk to and how their email should be written and how they should dress and how they this, how they that, how they that, you are not fun. You are not lovable, easy lovable, that's for sure. And I guarantee your spouse does not appreciate it. Does that mean sometimes your spouse doesn't appreciate that you reminded him or her to, don't forget you had that meeting? Sure. Sometimes all of us like to be reminded sometimes if we make little mistakes. That's not the problem. The problem is not sometimes they make mistakes or sometimes they need the help every once in a while because we're humans. The problem is if you're in a pattern of it, you're a critical parent. And no one wants to be married to a critical parent. And so what happens is, if you're not careful, is the person who's not the critical parent, they become a rebellious child. So they find themselves rebelling. And they can do that passive aggressively or they can be mean about it and say F you and this, and cuss them out or yell and scream at them. Or they can be the child who just does whatever he wants or she wants whatever he wants. So, I've seen so many marriages in this dysfunction. One pops right into mind where the woman, and they're both sweet people. They're both kind people. The mother mean, but she was a critical parent. He was a rebellious child. And she, don't give the kids candy. He's like, okay. And then when she went around, he'd give them candy. Because he's thinking, whatever, I know with the kids, they don't, it's no big deal. But instead of arguing, that was their pattern all the time. And so when they divorced, unfortunately, and I saw it coming, unfortunately, very unfortunately, we had a lot of talks about it, but she just wouldn't stick in there at all. Which was said there was no reason at all they couldn't have stayed married, but she didn't want to, and that was it. But she was his critical parent, and he was the rebellious child. And so that was the dance. Now, I've known couples who are in their 80s who are textbook definitions of this, textbook examples of this. So you can remain married in this dysfunctional communication pattern. It's just very unhealthy. It's not happy. It's not loving. It's not fun. But it can work because you both agree. My role is to be your boss. The other person says my role is to be a baby child that rebels all the time. That is very unhealthy, and it is by far the most common. And I can help you stop that if you need help. Just gotta let me know. The second most common dysfunctional pattern is when you have an adult to a child. And that is the adult ego state is, you'll know the person, they're typically, when they're trying to communicate, they're not trying to fix it all the time, and they're trying to tell you what to do. They're just trying to how to fix the problem. So if someone comes and says, I had a really bad day at work and I'm struggling or whatever with this issue, this work, and the adult, who's usually the man, says, here's what you need to do, or here's how I would fix that. Blah, 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 blah. Here's the problem. Well, let's analyze that. Where the child state, usually the female says, I just wish he'd listened to me. So that's also very common where one of the persons of the, repeat myself, one of the spouses comes at this constantly like they're just doing problem solving, and that's not healthy communication. And the other person is saying, I'm hurting right now. That's not at all what I want from you. The third most common is just silence, right? They just don't talk much at all. And it's just very common. I ask couples, if we talk about communication, if they come to see me outside of checkups or whatever, but typically at some point in the relationship, communication is going to be a problem. And usually if it's a problem, it's usually one of these three categories. Not always, but tends to be that case. So if you have courage, go ask your spouse this question. What role do you think I play? What role do you think I play? Do I fit any of these dysfunctional patterns? Do I play like a constant child? Am I irresponsible? Do I come across to you as someone who needs to be parented all the time? Now, be honest about yourself, because maybe you are like that. Maybe you're irresponsible. Maybe you're lazy. Maybe your spouse is being a parental a little bit only because nothing ever whatsoever would ever get done around the house or something. That doesn't mean it's healthy, but ask yourself those hard questions. Do I fit the dysfunctional patterns? Always ask I first. Don't say you, ask I. For example, you might say, are you ever afraid to tell me something because I might blow up or overreact or go crazy or shut down or hold it against you? Can you give me an example? Then ask your spouse, how does it make you feel that I fit that role? Ask your spouse, is there anything you need to tell me? I guarantee that I'll not freak out or judge. I'm safe. So ask the spouse if there's some pattern, a dysfunctional pattern that they've seen in you, and give you some examples without you being defensive. Well, the problem was you. If you cannot do it without being defensive at all, you need to talk to a therapist. Go to a third party. Really, if you can't do it, you need to talk to a third party. So those are common dysfunctional patterns that you can fight and get better at. We're almost done. Hang in there. Well, almost done. Let me make a difference now. Now I want to talk about arguing and fighting. Now, arguing, I make a distinction between arguing and fighting. And I do because I think it's very helpful. And you can use any words you want to use, but I'm going to tell you why I think it's helpful. I'm going to define them, and I think you'll see why it's helpful to make a distinction. Arguing is having maybe a heated disagreement over an issue where each person is searching for a solution that is best for the couple. Okay? You're just having a disagreement over an issue, but each person is searching for a solution that's best for the couple. You're still asking what's in it for us. It's very healthy to argue. Now, it's not very healthy to argue all the time, but it is very healthy to argue. In fact, if you do not argue, someone's either detached or you're codependent. You show me a couple that never argues, and I'll show you something that's wrong with the couple. Something's weird. I remember talking to a couple, they were newly married, and my wife asked her, so do you ever argue yet? She was, oh no. We're way too much in love to do that. Bless her heart. I mean, that's silly. That's just silly. If you don't, someone's detached. That is, meaning they don't really care at all, or they're codependent, which means someone doesn't have a self. You cannot have two free-willed individual human beings in a relationship without disagreeing over something sometimes having a heated disagreement. Now, fighting is having a heated exchange or disagreement where at least one person is doing whatever it takes to win. Whatever it takes to win. The initial issue is irrelevant. A solution is irrelevant. So if I use a numbered scale, let's say 0 means you're unconscious, you're in coma, you're asleep. and so about 0 to about 7 is in the arguing, right? So you can have discussion all the way up to arguing. Maybe arguing is about a 5, 6, 7. Fighting is about a 7, 8, 9, 10. Fighting's in that scale. If you find yourself getting around to a 7 and certainly you get to 8, 9, 10, you're fighting. And that's where the issue is not an issue that brought up doesn't matter. What matters, the solution doesn't matter. What matters is being right, winning. This usually involves some cussing or yelling or labeling or bringing up the past, physical violence. It's very unhealthy to ever fight. It will cause divorce. So while it's unhealthy to argue often, but it is healthy to argue sometimes, it is always unhealthy to fight. It will cause divorce. Let me say that one more time. Repeated arguing, or even a little bit of fighting, is unhealthy and it corrodes a marriage. Now, repetitive arguing, if you find yourself arguing often, or if there's any fighting whatsoever, in my experience, why does that happen? Usually it occurs to meet some need, like getting validation. That is, it makes the other person finally give you attention. They finally listen. They finally attend to your needs. And that's very common because people want to feel validated. They need to feel like someone listens to them. And sometimes he won't listen to me if I don't scream. She won't listen to me unless I throw the remote across the room. So a lot of times what's going on is just the healthy need to be validated. Back to our definition of healthy communication. Remember that? They have a healthy need to feel heard and understood and validated. And so they don't feel that. And so their natural gut level reaction is to get to the level of fighting. So they're trying to get needs met. They're trying to get the needs met in very unhealthy ways. That's a very common reason why people fight or tend to find themselves arguing often. Another very common reason why people fight is because they do it to punish the spouse because of some past wound that he or she caused. They have unresolved grief from a past wound, and it helps you punish them. And so if I scream and yell at you or cuss or call your names or label, whatever it might be, it's my way of punishing you. You deserve to be punished. That's the opposite of forgiveness. You could not be more opposite of the term forgive than this, right? If this is why you're doing it. And I've already talked about that when it comes to you don't play fair in marriages. It's not. You're supposed to be forgiving because you're integrated. You don't focus just on the bad. You don't focus just on the good. But if you focus a little bit on the bad, you've got to work on forgiveness because you're not going to do this. But it is a common reason why couples fight because someone's punishing. They feel the need to punish. A third reason why people like to fight or argue often is it puts yourself in a position where you feel superior because you feel inferior at other times in the relationship. Either because your spouse helps that situation or because you have your own insecurities. Maybe you feel so inferior at home as a child where your mom or dad was very domineering. They got up on your grill, or they were fussy or yelled at you, or you just never felt like you were good enough. and or whatever it might be. Maybe you felt threatened by your mom or dad, but maybe you felt like your mom or dad just used their physical dominance instead of having consequences to discipline you. They used what looked like basically all it was intimidation, and you felt inferior. Maybe you feel inferior at work. Maybe you feel inferior in other parts of your life, and you fight now at home because you know you can show superiority to your spouse. Maybe that's why. Another reason why people fight is because you're enacting learned behavior from parents or grandparents. You're just repeating it. You don't really want to do it. You're just learning it because you learned it and now you're just repeating it. Maybe you're fighting all the time because you enjoy the thrill of the drama, which of course can lead to a heightened sexual experience. Some people say they love to fight because they love makeup sex. It's very unhealthy. The makeup sex is not worth the harm you're doing in the fighting. It's not. Some people just fight because they're completing a habit loop. It's just as soon as you start, you got to go all the way up to 8 or 9 or 10 because that's just what I'm used to doing. It's just a habit. These are things you must stop doing. You must stop doing. So you've got to ask yourself, on a scale of 0 to 10, 1 to 10, 0 to 10, whatever, on a date night, how are we at communication? How much do we ever argue? And if we do argue, what do you think? Do we ever fight? If you just imagine for fun, if you use my distinctions, do we ever fight ever? And if we do, what's the topic? Why do we fight about that? Why are we fighting ever? If we find ourselves arguing more lately, or we're in a season lately where we're arguing more often, why is that? What's going on that causes the argument more often than not? What needs are not getting met? And it takes the courage. Be the courageous one who says, am I not listening enough? Am I not validating you enough? Is that what's driving it? What is it? What's going on? David, we can't do it. We've tried this, and all it does is cause another fight. You need a third party. Go talk to a therapist, go talk to a counselor, and someone can help sort it out. Sometimes people are so heated on the subject, they need outside help. So get it. So what? Get the help. Get the help. Get it out. So here's how to have a conversation that might lead to an argument without becoming a fight. How to have a conversation that might lead to an argument without becoming a fight. Here's some tips. It's real simple, and it works. I'm telling you it works. It works, it works, it works, it works, it works. Tip number 1, don't ever start with you. Just don't do it. The other person will immediately be forced into a defensive stance. Don't ever start with you. Don't ever start with you. Even if the you comes after you say, I feel sad about, I feel that you are. I would drop the word you for a while from your vocabulary. If you have a problem with this, drop the word you. Don't ever start with it. You did that, you. The other person immediately goes, defense mechanism, and you've already hurt yourself. Don't start with you. That's my first big tip. Start with I. And here are your favorite 2 words from now on when it comes to communication. If you're having a hard time, if it's going to cause an argument, here's what you do. You have 2 verbs, I feel and I need. I feel and I need. So if you're the one talking, this is what it sounds like. I feel. Now, you need to say a feeling. A lot of people aren't good at feelings. They don't know what the words are. I mean, you need to talk about feelings. Feeling words like I feel sad, I feel frustrated, I feel angry, I feel joyful, I feel whatever. Take the time to think about it. If you care about your spouse at all and they're telling you how they feel, don't finish the sentence. Shut your mouth and listen. Listen. So you're waiting. So if you're the one talking, you need to say, I feel. And you're not saying you. I feel you're a loser is not a feeling. You're a loser is not a feeling. I feel you're just like your mom. You're just like your mom is not a feeling on any feeling chart. I feel like you're lazy. Like you're lazy is not a feeling on the feeling chart. You've got to drop the you and drop the your and drop the you did. I feel sad. I feel blank. Now, after you feel it, you wait for your spouse to repeat what you said or summarize it before moving on to guarantee validation. That's ideal. You have the spouse go, I hear you say that you're feeling sad or frustrated. You're sad. You're sad. Okay, you're sad. I'm so sorry you're sad. I'm so sorry you're sad. If you didn't say you, I didn't accuse them, they are much more likely to pause and validate you. I'm sorry you're sad. Now they're going to go, I'm sorry you're sad, but you need to get over it. Okay, if that's your spouse, you need a counselor. Because that means they're unable to listen to a person's feelings. If they're that cold-hearted, if they're that cold-hearted and robotic, if they're that parental, you need to get help. I'm serious about that. And if you're convinced your spouse is going to go straight to the parent mode, well, I'm sorry you feel sad, but you need to grow up. I'm sorry you're sad, but the life sucks and life's world and the real world works, and then you're going to need help. You'll need help. But if they're not that severe, then they can go to step 2, which is when you say the word I need. I need. Now, here's the tips on I need. Be very specific, and needs need to be healthy. Needs are healthy, as I've told you before, not your own personal needs. That's your problem. Your own character needs, your own physical needs, those are your needs. But if a need affects the marriage, the spouse, then you need to say it. So here's an unhealthy thing to say. Unhealthy. I need you to fix me. I need you to fix my issues. I need you to make sure I'm always on time. Nope. What is healthy is, I need you to fix you and your behavior that affects the marriage, especially as it relates to the vows you made. I need you to not speak to me as a parent. It's very degrading, demeaning. It's very painful to hear it. It makes me feel very small and insignificant and unloved by you. It is damaging the relationship, and it needs to stop. That's a healthy thing to say. Now, if you're listening to the person say that, you can say, tell me how you feel. I feel good. Tell me how you feel. You're not going to be defensive. You're not going to interrupt. And that's when the spouse should say, I feel, right? And if the spouse doesn't say how you feel, the spouse is going, you. If you're really courageous, you're going to interrupt the person, put a little time up signal and say, tell me how you feel. I want to hear how you feel. And I won't be defensive, and I won't interrupt you. How do you feel? And then after you hear them say what they feel, you're going to say, I hear you saying X, Y, Z. You need to get it right. Don't move on yet. I hear you saying. And then, if you're really courageous, you're going to say, what do you need from me? And be genuine. That's when the spouse should say, I need. If it's healthy, do it. If they say, I need you to stop talking down to me like I'm an idiot or whatever it is, or it's condescending because I feel X, Y, Z, if it's a healthy need, and that's a very healthy need, do it. Change. Apologize. Ask for forgiveness. Make commitment to change behavior and give the steps on how you'll do it. Appreciate. Thank them for pointing this out because you care about the marriage and relationship so much. You want to have a healthy communication. Oftentimes, the original issue will go away because you've addressed the feelings. Feelings first, issue second. Always, always, always. Unless it's an emergency. I'm feeling very scared. Why is that? Because there's a car, boom, and they get hit. No, just there's a car, get out of the way. All right. But feelings first, issue second. Always in that order. Feelings first, issue second, always in that order. And what I have found in my life is if you address the feelings first, almost always, the issue just goes, never mind. There's no real issue anymore, typically. But anyway, if there is, great, work on it, go on. Well, how do I know if it's a time to have a serious talk about my spouse's behavior? How do I know if it's worth the risk of that? Well, I like to ask these questions. Is it a pattern? Unless the one instance is very serious. If it's very serious and you get to decide what's very serious, bring it up. Otherwise, look for patterns. All right? If they misplace the remote and you have a sit-down talk, honey, we need to discuss. Come on now. It's a pattern. Another thing is, does my spouse's behavior or lack of behavior cause a breakdown in the relationship? Does it cause me to feel very disconnected? Is it a violation of the vows he or she made at your wedding? If it's a serious impasse, you need to see a counselor. If there's some behavior that is a big disconnect, is it hurting the marriage? If you're not sure at all, talk to a counselor. Period. For example, you might say, your mess causes me anxiety, and I'll process those feelings fine. Right? Because anxiety is in me, and it's my responsibility with the anxiety. Yet, however, is there a way to negotiate this space such that I don't have to continually process those terrible feelings? So one more time, your mess all over the room or whatever, it causes me a lot of anxiety, and I'll process those feelings of anxiety just fine because I process my own feelings. Yet, is there a way to negotiate this space such that I don't have to continually process those terrible feelings? That's multiple. So I'm responsible for my own feelings. But if behavior affects the relationship badly all the time, you've got to talk about it. And make the time to communicate it. Stop making excuses for your lack of communication. You're not too busy. You're not too busy to do it. It just means your priorities are screwed up. And you're valuing other things besides communication with your spouse. You need to make the time to do this. And if you're so scared to do it, because the person's violent or whatever, go to a counselor first. Get a counselor's opinion first. Get a support group first. If they're not violent, if you're just still, your anxiety skyrockets because you can't bring up the issue, talk to a counselor first. So my point is, if it's that scary, talk to someone. Good counselors will role play with you. There's really good books on this. They'll have you have, all kinds of stuff. There's all kinds of ways to help, but don't make excuses anymore. Make the time to communicate. Well, David, when should I communicate? All the time. In the car, riding to or from work, on a cell phone, in the same vehicle, during lunch, after dinner, after you put the kids to bed. Find the time. Do it. Talk about it. And it's astonishing how much 10 minutes of really healthy communication, just 10 minutes of it can go so far. It doesn't take much. You don't think, I need 5 hours. Well, no, you don't. Not right now. Especially if it's a serious subject. If it's a real big deal, you don't want 5 hours. Serious issues should get short periods of time, so that you have the emotional energy for it. That's okay to have emotional energy and say, this is enough for tonight. We've talked about it for an hour. We'll come back up tomorrow, something like that. But most people aren't there. Most marriages start falling apart in that middle of the road area. That middle of the road area where they're just not good at communication, or they got this parent-child thing going on, or someone's passive, or someone's rebellious, and it's corroding the marriage. Okay, if any of this rings true to you and this ends the podcast, you're so depressed, please don't be depressed. Be encouraged. I'm telling you, I have seen some wretched communication patterns get so much better. And if you need a third party, if you need a counselor, get it. Right? That's what people like me do. We help people think these things through and talk it through so that you can get better. And you can get better. There is hope. There is hope. Don't give up. Now let's communicate well together, right? And on that, see you next time. Well, the conversation isn't finished. You can always reach out to me on social media. Are you on Facebook? I am too. At Glimpse of the Kingdom. Glimpse of the Kingdom on Facebook. Be sure to like it and you can see updates there. Also, if you're on Twitter, check me out at Dr. D. Pendergrass, at Dr. D. Pendergrass, or at Glimpse the King, at Glimpse the King, and I try my best to respond to comments and questions on there as quickly as I can. If you want more, there are many more resources on the podcast and my blog. Go to my website, davidpendergrass.com, davidpendergrass.com, and you can see a full list of the podcast, and my blog is available for free. Are you active in a church right now? I'd be happy to come out to your church and do all kinds of classes and workshops there. Check out davidpendergrass.com, davidpendergrass.com for more information. And may God in His great grace give you even just a glimpse of His kingdom this week. See you next time.